Siamo.
Carlo.
È arrivato. Okay.
Sì, sì.
No, se no, però se devi il tempo di... Ok. Va bene, così iniziamo, grazie. Posso? Linea? Ok.
Marco.
Buongiorno a tutti voi, buongiorno a tutti gli intervenuti. Una breve... ok, sì, ne possiamo iniziare. Ok. In questa manifestazione...
Good morning. Thank you very much for coming. I'd like to thank the civil and military authorities. This is an initiative carried out in the framework of the Interreg Mediterranean MD Net Diet involving many countries to promote the Mediterranean diet. We will actually expand on the first international Mediterranean lifestyle park. We will consider the setting up of social and public partnership, promotion of relations at international level, and also requirements for the establishment of the park, as we discussed in Caltanissetta last November. The park is international. It's actually called World Park. The park has to be an international one, otherwise it cannot exist as such. We have to promote virtuous internationalization of this park. We don't have to passively accept globalization as it has been for 20 years. We have to move towards good internationalization. We have to implement strategy, a program with various stakeholders. This is our park with all its networks to promote a new model of development and a new economy. However, we have to deal with two issues. On the one hand, the social and economic crisis with a divide concerning poverty, for example, and we have to generate new employment and new GDP, etc. And then we have to also consider the quantity aspect, an economy and a society that rely on integral economy based on the Laudato Si encyclical. The Park of Mediterranean Lifestyle is a contribution to a new model of development to the world. It's a gift relying on quality life, good lifestyle, and well-being. As a consequence of this, as we'll be discussing here, the park can only exist if fully integrated in international networks. The networks have to have similar aims. The MD networks, the UNESCO network, the Laudato Si network, such as the Tuscany networks, and other Italian networks, the promotional network of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for international cooperation, and also the geopolitics network, and also the International Exports Forum, as well as all Italian efforts towards internationalization. Within this framework, we have other initiatives such as the program aiming at Italian lifestyle, and also the economic network headed by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Italian Trade Agency, and also other networks. Within all this, there are many promotional and information tools, such as those that will be mentioned. All this involves other ministries as well, and also the network of entrepreneurs, the network of Italian communities abroad, and the network of entrepreneurs in Italy. Within this framework, one has to build up a sort of steering group for the promotion of dieta, which means international, which means Mediterranean diet and lifestyle. The park, which is extending through the network of municipalities, thanks to the National Resilience and Recovery Plan, will reach lots of other municipalities in Italy and in the rest of the world. Having said this, I'd like to officially open this meeting. I'd like to thank all of you and our partners sitting here. They're all contributing to the success of this event. Slow Food Sicily, the local chapter of Caltanissetta, Chef Pass, the consortium of Caltanissetta, the local action group of Caltanissetta, and many others. I'd like to officially start with the institutional contributions. Giancarlo Cancellieri, Undersecretary at the Ministry of Sustainable Infrastructure and Mobility.
Salve, buongiorno. Guardevo. Buongiorno a tutti.
Good morning. I believe this project has a clear ambition and also a vision. Vision is to put together such a large area with all its diversity. Saying that we're all Sicilians is something which conceals the differences that are found within this area concerning food and other aspects, including our own visions. And actually encompassing all this in a world park, healthy food, healthy lifestyle is not a low ambition. Well, all this is the result of great enthusiasm on the part of people that are sitting here, but certainly this has had great response everywhere. I've received positive feedback from local administrators that asked me about this project. Actually, we have received the first funding as a project, but what we intend to receive is a major contribution from the government in order to set up a park which promotes good food and lifestyle, promoting also tourist attractions, monuments, etc. And this will be the reason to come to Sicily. Sicily is not just the seaside, it's not just monuments in large art cities, but it's also the hinterland, the small municipalities that through their history can provide emotions, experiences, positive surprises, and very special ones. But in order to attract tourists, we have to network. We have to establish synergies. And that's the idea underlying this ambitious project. important thing from our point of view, from the point of view of the national government, is that there is great synergy among the local stakeholders. The mayors, for example, they are cooperating a lot at the level of local government in spite of their political views. And that's a good thing. It means that the political class is getting more mature and accepts to promote a joint project. Also, the prefectures, the police, etc., are sort of guiding processes towards healthy goals. This is a form of guarantee for the project itself and is also a sign of the possibility for our area, our region to be safeguarded. We will have hundreds of millions of euros made available for this area, and everybody is keen to receive them. But of course, we have to safeguard that they're geared towards the right aims. We have to push towards this dream, and we have to avoid complaining in a useless way, as if, places that are not facing the sea have no possibility to develop or attract tourists and healthy lifestyles. This is absolutely not true. We have to work towards this all together towards that direction. I'd like to thank the municipality of Caltanissetta, leading partner, and all other partners, the local action group and other institutions that are making an important contribution to the success of this project. Some days ago, we had an exchange of views with Minister Di Maio, and we said that if this model is successful, it can be exported and duplicated in other areas of our country. We are the country of Mediterranean diet. We have food specialties everywhere throughout Italy. If this project is fruitful, if it is successful, if it produces wealth in our area, and if it attracts people, then we can duplicate this project. That's what I was saying to do with Luigi Di Maio. We have to support this project in the best possible way and turn it into something that can be replicated elsewhere in Italy. Of course, with the help of ANCI, the National Association of Italian Municipalities. This can actually be a driver to disseminate all the potentials of our territory. We need institutional synergy. Well, in the project, it's unprecedented. 106 municipalities are involved, as well as public and private entities. The idea is to network and share different experiences. I'd like to thank you and the municipality of Caltanissetta. I wish you every success. Certainly, we will support you. The ministry will support you. We need infrastructures, of course, to connect all the municipalities that are part of the park. And we're trying to do our best at ministry level. We're investing in the south of Italy, in Sicily especially. We have invested a lot in infrastructure. We also launched a tender that will be completed on the 22nd of April to build the highway from Ragusa to Catania. Of course, some municipalities of the park are also involved. We're also completing Palma-Agrigento highway. And in April, we will try and start a project for the tangential road, the ring road around Agrigento. This is also going to be a major accomplishment. We are 30 years behind in infrastructure in Sicily, but it's time to say that we have to start on a new path and catch up. We can't continue saying that we're lagging behind. We need positive commitment on the part of all in order to have a rosier future ahead of us. Thank you very much.
Invito Sua Eccellenza il
I'd like
prefetto.
to invite Dr. Chiara Armenia, the prefect of Caltanissetta. Over to you.
Buongiorno.
Good morning. Thank you for your invitation. I'd like to thank the Undersecretary for making the concept, the nucleus of the Mediterranean lifestyle explicit for us. I feel at ease whenever Mediterranean lifestyle is being discussed because I live on my plain pasta and tomato sauce. It's a lifestyle. So the park that we intend to create is not only symbolical, it can be a driving force for local development. We are so used to say, oh, we live in Sicily, life in the south is difficult. But as a prefect working in Caltanissetta, I realized that even though it's not overlooking the sea, it's a town where Mediterranean lifestyle is experienced. For example, traditions like Good Friday in the Holy Easter week and its traditions. These are things that can be exported for their beauty, for their peculiarity, and it expresses Mediterranean lifestyle in the best way. I also think about nature, natural beauties like our hills. And believe me, I've lived in northern Italy, and it has other features, peculiar features. We have these view on our environment, which reflects our Mediterranean lifestyle. And it's what I would like to pay homage to. And my wish is that it can turn into concrete development, that we also have to commit to promote individually, because we are carriers ourselves of these important values that we should not lose. And on behalf of the prefecture I represent, let me extend my wishes. Thank you. And now the floor is given to Roberto Gambino, Mayor of Caltanissetta, whereas at 11:30 we'll have Lucio Caracciolo. Thank you, Francesco. I asked the floor because I'm going to my room for some other commitment, and this is what COVID produced. It gives us the chance to be present the same time on many fronts. So I would like to thank all the people who are here, the undersecretary, the prefect, the bishop, all the law enforcement agencies, representatives. Thank everybody. But let me say special thanks to the young people here, because I would like to deliver my message for the younger generations. What we are working on is a method that can be promoted. The method of sharing. We know our history. We know there are little towns fought in the past, but at present we better bring synergies forward. That's why we came together so as to promote a project on our territory. Let me say a few things on what we're doing. Let me say a few things on this park. We are trying to materialize something that is immaterial, which is the Mediterranean lifestyle. So 2 years ago, when we first met in August 2 years ago, I could say we did something smart. We said to ourselves, we want to turn something we already have into a concrete thing. We received funds for tourist development, and we felt we didn't have an attraction, something attractive. So we needed to find something attractive in order to receive funds and devise projects. So together with several bodies and institutions, we were able to be eligible for fundings for our cathedral, for example, to restore our cathedral. And thanks to the resilience plan, restoration of buildings was approved. This example that led us to our resort, the Mediterranean lifestyle and Mediterranean diet. Talking about the properties that were seized because from illicit proceedings. So all the properties that have been forfeited from mafia gangs, they are the recipients of international European applications. So the municipality of Caltanissetta is the main motor of the Mediterranean Park project. But we're not alone. The 106 municipalities which are sharing our projects are with us, are by our side. This is the synergy we mentioned before. We're working with the aid of, for example, the regional assembly, Sicilian Regional Assembly. And as the prefect said, these amazing views, landscapes, and natural environments is something that we probably got used to, and that other eyes can help us seeing. I'm grateful for the reference to the tenders that were made before, because here in Caltanissetta we collected €100,000 funding for new projects, and we are concerned, given the territory, we are concerned with the safety for the use of this funding. That's why the state, the government, and the law enforcement agencies will help us guarantee the best investment of the funds that we receive. Thank you. So now we have Lucio Caracciolo who's ready to intervene. Lucio Caracciolo is our main expert in geopolitics. He's very well known in the world, especially because Limes, the journal he directs, helps us understand what happens in the world. Limes also hosts a school. And let me say that he's an early friend of mine, and it's an honor today that he should help us and he should give us this gift with his presence. It's a pleasure to have him with us, talking about the Mediterranean lifestyle and diet. And I would like to tell him, Lucio, don't ever give up, because your work is of outstanding importance. And thank you for devoting cover and lot of articles to Sicily and Northern African realities. So don't ever give up. It's a very sensitive phase. And please tell us something about what happens these days. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I can't be there. A beautiful island and wonderful Caltanissetta. I hope to be there soon in the future. I was very interested in hearing about PAC, the Mediterranean lifestyle, Mediterranean cuisine. And these are wonderful things. Of course, I'm not a specialist in the field, so I would like to give you some of my ideas on how Sicily has become an important part of our country, especially given the geopolitical conditions around us. We all know that on the other side of the Mediterranean, in the Black Sea and in Ukraine, there's a war being fought, and it's a tragedy, causing thousands victims. And we are afraid that this will last for some time, because it involves great powers like the US and Russia. What has it got to do with Sicily? This has got lots of things to do with us, because we've entered an historical phase. For 3 generations, we've been able to live with the confidence that we were living in peace, whereas on the Mediterranean sides, like former Yugoslavia, conflicts were taking place. As I said before, around the Black Sea, there's a situation that we should take into account very seriously. And the socio-economical consequences are already apparent. And I'm talking about the Ukrainian refugees. They're not only to be able to receive, but also to involve in our economic life. We can see that prices have risen, not only energy, but all raw material. You've mentioned Mediterranean cuisine, and of course, you know that it's based on cereals. And we all know that unfortunately, nowadays, all the prices for these products, because they are exported mainly from Russia and Ukraine, have risen. What we tend to forget about Sicily when we look at the island from the rest from the other parts of Italy is that Sicily is a strategic island because the Sicilian Strait has always been, and now more than ever, a very strategic channel like Gibraltar for trips, holidays, transport, and also, unfortunately, today, it's strategic for military operations. And we know that Northern Africa, like Tripoli, or the Russians territories by the sea are very important. So Sicily is important for Italians in general. This wonderful island is the symbol of our Mediterranean nature. It's something we all often tend to forget. Together with Sicily, we tend to forget the sea. Italy is surrounded by the sea. 8,000 kilometers of its coasts are on the sea. And I would say that we tend to forget, and it's a problem because many harbors have been neglected in the recent past. Together with the sea, Sicily also has cultural beauties, together with the natural resources. Sicily has been at the center of our literary culture in the 20th century, but also in this one, because it inspired the greater artists of the world, not only Sicilian literary authors and artists. So I hope that I can be with you as soon as possible, the outcomes of the project, and to be with you. So thank you. We look forward to having you here soon. And please go on helping young people growing up in the best way thanks to your work and your journal. Thank you. I would like to leave the floor to the bishop. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. On behalf of the bishop who's ill, let me extend his regards, and on his behalf, I will say a few things. I was asked to be here around 10 o'clock, so apologize if I'm late. So I would like to say a few things on the park and on the lifestyle the park is about. And I would like to say something to encourage this initiative. It's called Cultural Park, and the church is involved in its support. The Bishop Conference is supporting this initiative. When we talk about the Church of Caltanissetta, we need to say that it covers half of the territory of the Caltanissetta province. Together, and it shares the whole territory with the Piazza Armerina Church. The cultural park also enjoys the presence of the church properties and presence. It's 18 municipalities, to give you an idea, that are involved in the project. True that some of them, most of them, are very small because of the decrease in citizenship. But these 18 municipalities are to be promoted, enhanced, because we're happy to share this reality. The idea, the concept of the cultural park can be summarized as religious tourism. Even non-believers can acknowledge the beauty of a church, of a monument, of a museum. And this is something very attractive itself. It is a message itself. The beautiful speaks for itself, for things which are at the heart of our beliefs and lifestyle. So we're happy that this can be kept in high esteem, and we want to encourage it. When we talk about lifestyle, we all know that the church has always been active in history. True that there are aspects that can be debated, but during the centuries up to the present, and we know that we're getting closer to Holy Easter Week, which is a heartfelt tradition that contribute with other qualities to our lifestyle. This faith is really spread and felt by citizens, not by institutions. So all this is part of our culture, and it makes us feel peculiar. So I would like to emphasize the fact that the park is about all these aspects. There's a cultural presence that we could call human, anthropological, that brings the religious element to the heart of these traditions. And the Catholic Church has always been a leading force. We will call it an active agency nowadays that has mediated and that has been active in these cultural traditions. I think that it is important to give up being those who complain about our southern condition, so different from northern Italy, and we should focus on the beauty of our traditions, for example, the cultural tradition, the narrative tradition that was mentioned before. We should be proud of these things. We should give up feeling ashamed of the negative aspects. Thank you. And please, let's remind the priest who spoke on behalf of the bishop that the park is grounded on the Laudato Si encyclical. I would like to invite Councillor Manlio Messina here, and he will say something on behalf of President Musumeci.
Bene, sì, grazie, buongiorno.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me here. I'd like to, of course, thank the Mayor, the Undersecretary Giancarlo Cancellieri, and all of you. I'm here on behalf of President Musumeci. He asked me to replace him here, and it's really a great honor for me because it's an important initiative, my dear Mayor. As we discussed some time ago, I am in favor of this initiative and I am still supporting it. Actually, the whole area of Caltanissetta has promoted a very smart path, one that I very much agree on, and we have laid major foundations for this purpose. We often hear that Sicily should live off tourism, but actually there have been no major actions, political actions for this. We've left it in the hands of private initiatives and of nature, what God has endowed us with. But I think the situation is changing now. Dear Roberto, I'd like to tell you something about our idea of tourism in Sicily and what we have also tried to achieve through our reform, which will be discussed at the assembly level very soon. We hear about good food, good lifestyle, we hear about a Mediterranean diet, and they're all part of our DNA, so to say. It's up to us within this project to disseminate this very important message of good health and good food. We're well known throughout the world because of this, but we have to focus on this in an increasing way here in Sicily. And if we then consider that we have 14% of UNESCO heritage here in Sicily. We have 10% of the monuments of all the monuments heritage here in Sicily, and this gives you an idea of the contribution that can be made by Sicily. Monsignor, the Monsignor that spoke before reminded us of the church tourism as well. There's actually great synergy when we talk about culture, irrespective of the political views. Concerning religious tourism, we, together with Chesi and Monsignor Raspanti, who's responsible for tourism, have implemented a specialized course for tourist guides concerning religious tourism. Together with the regional parliament, and I'd like to thank Honorable Forti for being here, we have implemented a project on sustainable paths and trails. I'm thinking of sustainable tourism in general. I think we have to focus on this because it's becoming very popular, not just in terms of GDP share, but also in terms of tourism here in Sicily. We are developing the beauty of tourism from an environmental and sustainable standpoint, and also from the point of view of food. The project we're discussing here is part of a strategy that we would like to continue implementing. And linking all this to the word Mediterranean is not something accidental, not only because we're talking about the Mediterranean diet, but also because we are implementing initiatives putting Sicily at the center of the Mediterranean area. In October in Sicily, there will be a book fair, the second most important book fair in Italy after the one in Turin. It will be the international book fair of the Mediterranean area. The North African countries will participate there. We have cooperated with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I'd like to thank Minister Di Maio for giving us this opportunity. Sicily will be the protagonist of this initiative. I believe that the turning point is not does not imply that Sicily becomes a protagonist in the Mediterranean Sea. We are already protagonists, so we have to exploit our geographical position in an increasing way and also exploit the marvelous things we have in an increasing way. You know, you are the mayor of an important city, and in some cases, an army is not enough to keep a city clean unless you have the involvement of all citizens. You know, the fact that, for example, when in a car you throw paper out of the window is something unacceptable. We have to safeguard our beauties. I see lots of students here, so please be aware of this. Maybe you will have to educate your parents on this, on an environmental policy that safeguards and protects our territory. Of course, policymakers have to make their own part, but we have to help them keep our cities clean and respect them. This is most important. This civic sense on the part of our citizens in order to protect our areas. This is all as far as I'm concerned. It's important for me to be here and represent my council. Thank you very much for having me here. Thank you very much, and please say hello to Nello and thank him. Thank you very much. And now Angela Forti, Vice President of the Sicilian Regional Assembly. She's indeed an amazing MP. The law was approved yesterday, and it was also thanks to her. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me here. Good morning, Mr. Mayor and Undersecretary. And then good morning to everyone also online. I see lots of young people here. On the other occasion in November, beginning of December, there were lots of presentations that made us understand that this project will accompany you. It can be the future for all of you young people. It can represent an opportunity for your future employment and your future lives. The Mediterranean area, an area which is in between the past history. We're well known as a place where lots of cultures, lots of seeds went through, and they have aggregated in order to form something new. Everybody recognizes this, but maybe we don't. The new generations have not always focused on this. It's not just about the emotional aspects, but also about sustainability, economic aspects, income, and possibility of achieving self-accomplishment within all this. We must be aware of the enormous heritage in our hands. We need great abilities in order to rely on all this heritage as a driving force for the future. Mr. Nicoletti is focused on this, and he was able to put together many municipalities and many production areas. Yesterday, the Sicilian Regional Assembly passed a law which is the recognition of trails. It's infrastructures where you can cycle, hike, or ride a horse. This will unveil unknown itineraries. Then yesterday, again, we discussed law on Mediterranean diet. And this will take us to the level of other regions that have understood the willingness on the part of policymakers to acknowledge an intangible heritage. We've done this with something new. We've added an amendment to Law 5 of 2002, where 13 wine trails were established in Sicily. We have made an amendment and introduced also oil and other food specialties, food and agricultural specialties aside from wine. And this means that policymakers intend to approach the sector of oil tourism as was recently established through a decree of the ministry. This opens up new opportunities. You know, we shouldn't think that we're only anchored to the past and argue that we are the best. We are those that own the Mediterranean diet. We're going through innovative paths as well. We have to redesign this lifestyle and we have to make it attractive so that people are attracted to the heart of Sicily. Well, it was said that we should not complain. Indeed, we should not complain at all. We have to be active We have to be the protagonists. So we shouldn't simply judge and say this is good and this is bad. The tools are there. You have to get involved. On our part, we are doing our best, but clearly many levels are involved. That's why I'm asking Councillor Messina or Mr. Messina, representing the government, that the government shows, for example, a decision, a council decision, putting together the extraordinary assets that we have, all the knowledge of the 11 working groups where they have discussed in depth all the desires and everything which is encompassed in this path so that it becomes strong and authoritative, not just a parliament law, but also a bottom-up approach so that action is undertaken with the national government. The council decision must establish that there's a willingness to exploit what has not been exploited yet, the enormous heritage that encompasses the whole of Sicily as one single entity, not just many individual entities put together. Thank you very much, Angela, for this excellent presentation. Let me remind you that the park is Sicily as a whole. Of course, everything starts from the center of Sicily because of certain characteristics, but then it involves the whole of Sicily and the whole of the Mediterranean area. Sicily can make a big step in this direction as recognized by the international community. This is in order to highlight what Mrs. Forti has said. Then I would like to call upon the mayors of Agrigento, Enna, Favara, San Cataldo, Caltagirone to come up here for their talks. Favara, Agrigento, Enna.
Ok, ok, sì, prego,
Can you come up here, please, all of you? We will now have
Immagino giornali, mi muovo un po'.
Ok, l'intervento degli Petrini.
We will now have Mr. Petrini.
Prego.
La squadra è perfetta, 2 senior e 2 ragazzini. Sì, ma dovete diventare leader presto, ragazzi.
You look young, but you have to become leaders very soon. I'm trying to train leaders, so you have to do your best. The process of getting close to the Terra Madre event and also the implementation of the first park of Mediterranean lifestyle actually go hand in hand. While waiting for Terra Madre, the fact that Caltanissetta wanted to implement the park is an extremely important initiative. Why? Because the proposal to focus on the Mediterranean lifestyle and a certain way of producing goods, of having or following a certain nutrition, of considering the landscape and the territories. Well, all this is extremely functional and instrumental for the needs which are felt everywhere in the world. What is important is the international dimension, which also implies that, first of all, something is done regionally and locally. Many speak of global, use the word global. This means that the global dimension can coexist with the local one. To make a long story short, you cannot be strong at international level unless you have strong roots locally. So whatever we can say for the implementation of this park is instrumental for the development of the local reality where the park will develop. There are economic and social elements connected to farming, tourism, protecting soil, defending the local cuisine, which has a century-old history. I mean, all this can be a virtuous example to favor the establishment of other centers and sites everywhere in the world, combining scientific and cultural knowledge, local areas with a more international dimension. This is the meaning of the word sustainability. This is what sustainability really means. You know, it comes from sustain. Sustain is the piano pedal which elongates the note. So an A becomes a long A. Sustainability means durability. What you're doing in terms of economic, social, political analysis of the huge heritage and the great assets that are available in the area that you're considering is very important to achieve durability of the project. And this is extremely important in view of the strategic choices that the region of Sicily must have. On the one hand, farming and also tourism on the other. What you're doing at the present time is extremely important to put in place a park that gives added value to the whole area. I believe this can set an example with reference to macro issues. It's very nice that you selected the topic of Mediterranean lifestyle. You know, there are many cultures around the Mediterranean Sea, but what they share is an ecosystem that has to be protected and defended. So I wish all of you to be able to implement this park the way it should be implemented. And I believe that this will be very much appreciated at Terra Madre. It can add additional value to our event. Thank you, and I wish you every success.
Uno dei più grandi personaggi italiani mondiali, ha costruito cose.
Thank you so much, Mr. Petrini. We all know that this is a special guest, a very well-known expert at world level. So I would like to thank him from my heart and thank the Slow Food Movement he founded. And let me remind you that this initiative is part of the Awaiting Terra Madre event. Yes, exactly. As a matter of things, we'll do our best, and I'm saying this to our young audience, we'll do our best to take you to Turin during the month of May and June. I would like to hand over to Ambassador Luigi Benedetti, the Italian ambassador in Tokyo. Good morning, everybody. I'm Luigi Benedetti, Italian ambassador in Japan, in Tokyo. So I'd like to extend my regards from Tokyo. Today, the first multi-center park is being launched. It aims is not only to have a positive impact on Sicilian and Italian economy, but also on the life of all people. As an Italian ambassador in Japan, I can witness the love the Japanese have for a country. And they see our country, like many other people in the world, as really a beam, a guiding light for lifestyle, culture, and tradition. So I would like to conclude my brief presentation for just paying my homage to all of you who promote the excellence of your territory. Of course, we would like to invite the ambassador to promote the Mediterranean diet basket in Japan. Now we'll have the Commissioner General at the Italian Commissioner General at the Dubai 2020 Expo.
Vi parlo dal padiglione italiano all'Expo di Dubai.
Here in the Italian pavilion of Dubai 2020 Universal Exposition. It's been an important experience, interesting experience, which has lasted for more than 6 months. And let me say that these initiatives in this particular area of the world, involving so many countries, will positively affect all the tourist flows in the next decade. It'll be a new kind of tourism from the point of view of the average age of tourists, which is estimated in 29 years of age. These tourists are bound to choose their destinations where, in particular, cultural activities can be a feature. So Italy is considered a very important destination because it has so many attractive elements from education to culture to science, beauty in general, the beauty of the Italian territory. So this multifaceted reality is what will be able to characterize the tourist experience. It is an innovative element from the standpoint of tourist offer and demand. And Sisi is an active part of this. So I'm happy I'm here with you because today opens a moment for our future that is connected to food quality, to beauty, to cultural interest. So Italy will be the protagonist for the next decade. Thank you. And waiting for our other guests, I would like to discuss what we've heard so far, together with the representatives who are here from several several municipalities involved. I apologize. Let me introduce Miss Lagaipa from Agrigento, Mr. Cortese, and Deputy Mayor Liotta from Favara, and Gioacchino Comparato, Mayor of San Cataldo. Caltagirone should also be here, and the representative can come up onto the stage here if it's in the room. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me here. It's an honor for me to be here in this important conference. On behalf of Mr. Palumbo, the Mayor of Favara, I extend his regards because due to other commitments, he couldn't be here in person today. Give him our best. We call him the little Buddha because of his body. I would like to say that our town council acknowledged the importance of the initiative on the park and Mediterranean lifestyle. We signed up a very important partnership document lately. And we, on that occasion, the importance of the Favara municipality was established. Its role in the coordination together with the Caltanissetta Council for the implementation of the parks, and we're proud of these. We also committed to devote the work of an coordination unit directed by architect Sorge, providing the service of agronomists so that aspects of the core aspects of the park, and only having to do with the Mediterranean diet, but also focusing on a wider perspective, can be implemented. For example, the selection of ancient grains, and at the same time, the production, which is being increased, of vines and pistachio fruits. The municipality of Favara by law is the village of the Easter lamb, which is a dessert made with almonds and pistachios. So you're all invited on the 13th to the 16th of April. The 24th fair of dessert will be held in Favara. And the person in charge of the tourist district is here and can confirm that will participate in the international fair in Milan, where we will display our products. This means agricultural development. This means food production. This means trails, the food and wine trails that have been mentioned before. Mr. De Santis, Mr. Nicoletti will guide us to the creation of new trails, which will ease our tourism. A few minutes ago, we heard the message delivered by the ambassador, the Italian ambassador in Japan. And it was there in Japan that I learned something that over the past years I tried to hand down to other generations in our reality. This is the blossoming of fruit trees, because you all know that in Japan, the cherry tree is a sacred plant. And for this reason, the Ministry of Tourism and Agriculture, and you can check these, they every day issue a bulletin on the condition of blossoming, on the daily condition of blossoming. Now we have the almond tree, and almond trees blossom different times of the year because of the external temperatures. In Agrigento, for example, blossoming starts in mid-December and it lasts until the end of March. And we have almond trees all over territories. Why don't we map up these production? We could also bring people, tourists, to all the companies which are involved in the production of almond products. And I will conclude by saying that I believe that our president should be increased. For example, in our town, there's an association that submitted an application, and there are several denominations around this project, because it will be reached by proposals made by potential stakeholders. On the 19th of March, an important document was signed, drafted and signed in Palermo, and it's called The Rights of the Mediterranean. It deals with the protection, the right protection in the area. And we would like to be the spokesperson of this project. So we want to take into account the possibility that these chart suggests that our perspectives can only be widened if we join forces.
Scusate, la regia c'è il deputato Pignatoni in linea?
So the MP, Mr. Pignatone, is with us. Good morning, Mr. Pignatone. Good morning, everybody. Thank you. I would have liked to be there with you, but I'm in Rome at the deputy chamber in this moment, because we all know that it's quite a complex moment. But I wanted to be with you for something that I reckon important. So let me thank everybody who works and is active so as to implement project. The project that gives the right acknowledgement of a way of feeling at the center, living at the center of the Mediterranean. We need to reassess the cultural paradigm. Of course, it's also translating to a food paradigm, which is the lifestyle that is so well known in the world, but at the same time that has been neglected in a way, because for many years we've been passive consumers of other styles promoted by other areas in a country. Let me be clear. I'll give you an example. We have amazing cheese which have suffered in a way because of traditional quality product, namely Grana Padano, for example. So let me just say that we need to enhance, to give value to all the variety of traditions Italy enjoys in food production. We are facing, and I say this as a member of the Agricultural Commission of the Italian Chamber of Deputies, we are suffering from these conditions. We need to exploit the short supply chain, for example, products, because our country provides us with so many products that can be key elements, for example, during international crises. Let me congratulate you again on the will to involve all stakeholders that you showed. And given my determination, I would like to see aspects such as production being emphasized. I know your valuable work, but I would like to see the involvement of the whole sector, industrial sector, in food production. because the risk is to display an amazing tree while neglecting the strength of its roots. I'll be following and attending this conference, and while congratulating you again on your initiative, this is the message that is important to tackle, in my opinion. Thank you. You young people here, together with the senior colleagues, and of course, it is the young people we need to support because they're the future. Can you use the other microphone? Thank you. Good morning, everybody. On behalf of the municipality of San Cataldo, it is a pleasure to be here and being part of this project. Despite the fact that we're newly appointed town council, let me say that we believe that it is essential to be working on projects like these because it deals with the territory and through our traditions with our culture. What the Mayor of Caltanissetta said before is very important. We need to make material something that is immaterial by its very nature. As a municipality of San Cataldo, we're part of these initiatives. For example, we have launched trails, and we are developing more initiatives because they cast light on our territory, on our lifestyle. And this is exactly what was being said before, can become something very concrete. As mayors, we're actually called to do these, to give voice to our territory. And besides, of course, solving all the problems that can arise on a daily basis. But we're also called to contribute to the development of the territory. Councillor Nicoletti some time ago used the definition the wealth of our forefathers and fathers, which is something that we can contribute to by making the beauties of our island be known. This can be done through, for example, the synergy, such a synergy represented by the one the park carries out. We can develop, we can work on development projects because otherwise it would not be wise to, for example, leave out municipalities from such projects, especially in view of the collaboration between the local realities and the international realities. So I would like to thank the Caltanissetta Town Council for being leader in the implementation of this project. We're ready to give our contribution to these initiatives. Another young representative and the senior one. Oh, you're very kind, because I stopped considering myself young for a few years so far. I'm Fabrizio Laiaiga. I'm not a mayor. I'm the administrator of the tourist district of the Temple Valley. On behalf of the mayor, Michicaro Margherigento, I extend his kindest greetings. Unfortunately, due to other commitments, couldn't be here. But we want to express our proximity and closeness to these projects. And I really feel at home in them. Something I would like to say that if I could, I would just neglect next elections, and I'll tell you why. I will tell you why. Because I think that right now, especially for our territory in Sicily, we are receiving such important messages, and I'm talking about all the work and contributions by the regional government and lots of realities. We've seen such goodwill that I am a bit concerned if I consider a change, a turnover due to future elections. As I before, I'm no longer so young as my colleague who spoke before. And I say this because, believe me, I haven't seen such an active participation for quite some time. These interests and enthusiasm and energy is not something that is inflicted from above. It just comes from the people. So talking about the park and the Mediterranean lifestyle, while I was taking notes this morning before coming here, you all know that sunlight hits us after an 8-minute trip. And the journey, the trip from the sun to its target actually takes 8,000 years. That's what science witnesses. It's the same, and this is the parallelism with any initiative. If you see a production, for example, going well, you probably do not consider that the company took 50 years to be set up to be productive. So I have really great esteem, I hold in great esteem the projects that take many years before they see the light. And it takes many years for example, town council to advise them and work on them. And of course, all the successful outcomes cannot be obtained without the regional government's help, supervision, and support. Yesterday, I was talking to my colleague Liotta, and I must say that as a town council representative knows what red tape means for a town administration. That's why I hold in high esteem all administrators, all the people working in a town council administration. These projects and this initiative is very important for us. The other day, last week, we launched the coast, the Myth coast, the coast of Myth, the part of the coast going from Selinunte to Gela, concerning not only the the coast mentioned, but involving all the inland territories. And in Sicily, an island, so therefore surrounded by the sea, when we launch projects for the promotion of coastlines, for us it is implicit that the whole inland territories should be part of it. It's the offer of the whole of it. So when I go somewhere, I'm really happy that I can also taste the food, drink the wine of the region. That's why I think it should be implemented everywhere. Let me give you an example. The Museum of Five Senses in the town of Sciacca, devised by an former IBM manager, who decided to come back to her town and at the concept of this experiential tourism. These people who devise such projects invite tourists to come together for an experiential experience. For example, they're invited to go to the fishmongers, to the fishmonger in the town, to the pizza, to the pizzeria. There are even people like managers from important firms who milk animals. So the person who simply had, this is one of the outcomes. So for example, the lady who owned a pizzeria and who was used to serving pizza, of course, now speaks English and promotes her activity in different languages with lots of tourists. I will conclude and by wishing all the best. Thank you.
Now, a senior person for Enna. Well, it's a simple coincidence that I am here in Caltanissetta, but I've come here for many years at the Court of Appeal. I'd like to thank you on behalf of our mayor. He wanted someone to represent him here because there have been long-standing relations between our city and the city of Enna for many years. I believe that one would expect parochialism and jealousy among neighboring cities. This is something that contributed to lots of delays in the course of history. You know, as was written in books, Sicilians are known for being the best of all, but we have to change the attitude. I feel lucky because I was born here. I must tell you, it's the best, the most beautiful place in the world. Different landscapes, mountains with volcanoes, not just mountains. Then the sea, the seashore, where I attended lawyers' meetings in the area of Marsala, and I got to know that area as well. It's very different. Yes, different landscapes. You have the impression not to be in Sicily even. There are so many opportunities and things to see in Sicily that one does not really, one would not have enough of 100 lives to know everything taking place in Sicily, from milking the cows to other typical things. In the 60s, it was thought that the growth of our area was just hydrocarbons and blanket industrialization, which the harm of all this. You know, they've not cleaned those sites up, and some people have hidden certain problems. Now we have to um, reclaim the industrial sites that are no longer used. With Agenda 2000, ENAM has already started work. I'm referring to Agenda 2000. Part of the projects refer to a cycling trail joining in with Caltanissetta. It's in good progress at the moment, and this highlights the importance of hinterland areas. They're not peripheral, they have to be given value to. Of course, the metropolitan areas attract more than the hinterland areas. They have other potentials and more potentials than ours. No one can deny their greater competitiveness at international level, but the inner areas have to join forces. They have to start joint initiatives, and they have to try and retrieve spaces and avoiding losing ground. Similar initiatives are very important. I hope we can pursue them. As our colleague was saying before, elections sometimes bring about a lot of turmoil, but thanks God, someone said that democracy is the worst of all possible systems, but it's the only possible one. We hope we can disseminate a new way of doing things. Of course, if we set the example also through the urban agenda, this is feasible. For the sake of completeness, I'd like to add that it just be enough that the newly elected politicians would follow suit and continue doing what their predecessors have done. I think we can discuss openly the project of the Costa del Mito, the coast of the myth, is not our own idea. Actually, it was the previous tourism councils that thought about this, but then it came to life because DMO took care of this project. I think that, you know, projects have to go from one mayor to the other. Those that began this project at some point were not re-elected, so the project had gone lost, but this should no longer happen. Thank you very much for having us here. We will always support you. The park will be there forever. Then we will establish a foundation. We will have create an enormous organization, a huge one, it will be here forever. The park is meant to stay in the future. We're creating it for younger generations. Of course, the goal is unifying central Sicily, not the south of Sicily, but central Sicily, reaching the seashore, as Lucio Caracciolo said. He said, you know, you are a strategic power and you're not aware of this. I think sooner or later we have to come to terms with this. And I'm confident we're offering this package to the rest of the world. And I think we have to establish pole, one in the Etna region. In the Messina area, it will be a bit more difficult to decide where. Then we will have also one pole next to Corleone in the Palermo area. I talked to our friends in Marsala yesterday. It's a beautiful place as well. We have to turn things the other way around, and we have to consider that there was an internal weakening in a way. So we have to work as if we would combine the three provinces. We will have from Ragusa as well. Giuseppe, the leader of the university pole, will be here as well. So we are offering a lifestyle opportunity and new lifestyle ideas also to metropolitan cities where life is getting very bad. You know, you can't live in Palermo anymore. I'm saying this as a desperate citizen. We have to beware not to turn everything into election campaigns. We're trying to implement an institutional change. So from now on, we will always work together. Agrigento and Caltanissetta must be united. The smaller municipalities must understand this as well. For example, Favara. This is our goal, right? We'll be using all instruments for this purpose. Before Easter, we will discuss how to use all public policies. You know, in the past, we spent a lot for many projects, but not much was left of them. I think we have to consider that our project was considered as one of the most important ones in the world. Why can't we offer something to the rest of the world, from Sicily to Japan to Russia at the end of the war? But this would be another topic. We're all leaders in this park. It's the Holy Spirit in the Trinity. Thank you for coming. Now, Giuseppe Carlo Marino is joining us. Be careful, because we're, you know, mixing up everything, local areas, government, education, but also the great history. For our path, we very much need our great people in history and also great historians, otherwise we'll go nowhere. It will be a great honor for us to listen to Professor Giuseppe Carlo Marino, who is one of the top 10 Sicilian historians in past and present times. Carlo is at the same level as Michele Ari Rosario Reo. They were giants, the mythical P3, and then more contemporary historians like Francesco Renda, Giuseppe Gianrizzo, Lucio Parone, who will be speaking here tomorrow, Lupo. You see, mentioned approximately 10 great historians. They are real geniuses, and Carlo is among them. Now, Carlo wrote about people. He wrote about the body of the south of Sicily. He wrote many books and articles. Half an hour wouldn't be enough to mention all his writings. With his beard and pipe, he's like an angel that has fallen onto earth, even if he is in disguise. Among the many things that Carlo accomplished, and he's an eternal Peter Pan, he wrote An Age Against History, an essay on the revolution of the 20th century. And this is actually the legacy of his great work. He doesn't give up and says, you know, the industrial civilization has come to an end. A new civilization has come about, an electronic, an IT civilization. Certain identities have collapsed, creating democracy. That democracy is now void. We have to reconstruct political entities. Well, it will be our children's task. You know, Fukuyama mentioned that history had come to an end, but it's not true. We'll expand on this. You know, mankind, it's taken mankind thousands of years to emancipate from the state of nature, the myth of Eden. And now Giuseppe Carlo says we are returning to the Eden, which is consumerism, producing for consuming, consuming for producing more. The new Eden is the market, the obsessive and totalitarian market. It's destructive. You don't need to be a scientist to understand this. It's the law of the jungle with a return to the original state, where this system has symmetrical hegemony. It excludes the 3/4 of the world, and I can mention this. I can list those that are excluded also in the so-called rich societies, the privileged societies. You know, it's not like blaming what we've had so far, but have you got any idea at what level this historian is? Well, he is a genius, and his book is at the level of the greatest intellectual production. Please read his book on capitalism of surveillance, and please read How Capitalism Will Go On by Wolfgang Strecker. I could quote a dozen of international and Italian books on this, but Giuseppe Carlo Marino is at the level of all this. I'd like to pay homage to him. He says this is a time without history. We have to bring historian thinking back to stage. He said, I am venturing on other territories, anthropology, etc., drawing from other mentors. So I'd like to hand it over to him as mentor. We have to read all these books and start again from the beginning. We have to get hold of history again. Good morning. Can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you. First of all, good morning, everybody. I'm a bit moved after hearing this nice introduction that my friend DeSantis made of me. I must say that over the years, I worked as a humble historian, but no interpretation of my work has ever been richer and more exciting to me. Actually, this morning, my friend DeSantis made the most appropriate interpretation of my work. He actually explained the contents of one of my more recent books. I tried to provide a unitary interpretation of the Sicilian history in the context of the history of Italy and Europe. I'd like to thank you for making this review of a recent book of mine, which is titled Against the Winter of Memory and History. It's published by Castelvecchi. We can say that this book, in a way, summarizes the overall attitude towards this island. I have always passionately considered the peculiar aspects and the unique aspects of the cultural context in Sicily. And I've always considered that suffering may be the expression of underestimation. Very often it was also self-underestimation. The initiative of the Park of Mediterranean Lifestyle is a way of overcoming all these limits, at least in the idea of the organizers and those that have proposed this park and are promoting it. It's a way of changing the tradition of isolation to which this island has been condemned for too long. And it's a way of changing the underestimation and self-underestimation of this island. We are a great cultural experience at the center of the Mediterranean area. This is our starting point. We have to start from here, historically interpreting the reality. At this meeting, we're here to discuss facts that have to be accomplished. We have been and still are the central point, the core of a civilization, a multi-ethnic and multicultural civilization, which is represented by the Mediterranean area. A world that was described and analyzed some years ago by the great historian Fernand Braudel. Sicily is at the center of a Mediterranean culture, which is a melting pot of many cultures. And the value of all this is to be able to summarize all these cultures. As far as Sicily is concerned, in the Mediterranean context, there are some unique cultural experiences with special features which become contaminated and mix up with other realities in the Mediterranean areas. What are these autonomous cultural experiences relying on specific cultures? First of all, the farmers, the peasant culture. We have a Sicily of farmers and large fields, large estates, trying to find their space in international markets. Then, so we have the peasants' culture in Sicily, which has evolved into a culture of workers, farmers, and entrepreneurs in the countryside. The wine culture, the wheat culture, the vegetables culture in Sicily, together with the production, the animal production, where everyone has something to give and transfer to the rest of Europe, to the rest of the Mediterranean basin and the rest of the world. And then we have a Sicily of suffering, of people's suffering, of oppression, and also lifestyles, the mines, the sulfur mines in Sicily that were so important in the central part of the region that we're now dealing with. We have more memories than current facts in relation to mines, but we have to remember those mines because they meant a lot in terms of cultural change and daily life for thousands of people in the center of the island. And then urban Sicily, the cities where the Sicilian intellectuals start working and practicing, and also the bourgeoisie, middle class, which found difficulties developing their cultural and political experiences. Very often there were contradictions, and sometimes we pay a price for this. Well, I would focus on these three big cultures of Sicily. They're connected to three different lifestyles and three different historical experiences of the past. I think we have to remember all this and consider the possible positive impact of all this at the present time. Now, this implies that we historically reflect on the overall experience and overall history of this island and its population. This also requires that we provide tools to bring these memories back to life. Otherwise, they are just frozen memories useful to intellectuals and scholars, not useful for the purpose of the social and economic development which is meant to be pursued in this project. When we talk about restarting, relaunching an identity in Central Sicily, we need to understand what is missing here so that this cultural identity relies on a sound basis. At the present time, there is no sound basis because we have difficulties. We experience these difficulties every day. You know, we have difficulties in transportation, difficulties in infrastructure. It is sometimes impossible to move from one city to the other. We see that there is there are many problems from hydrogeological standpoint, and also young people abandon certain areas in the hope of going elsewhere to find a better life. You know, young people hope that they can find a better life outside this island. Our project also poses the issue of transforming everything that has to do with the infrastructure of Central Sicily. It's been neglected for too long. We have to remedy to this because we have been used to trying to cope with what is available, but we need to consider that development is a great issue implying a transformation of the infrastructure in the region. I think this is essential. It forms integral part of the project that we're discussing here today, the park that we are discussing. What is the aim of the park in the national, European, and world context? Well, the idea is to recreate the conditions for Sicily as a whole, not just Central Sicily, to have a role in the European civilization. The goals of the book, well, once these goals have been achieved, Sicily can become a privileged pole of attraction of tourist flows, which so far have just touched Sicily, even if we see, well, seen an increasing number of tourists in the last few decades. So do we want to accept the fact that Malta own in spite of all the limitations. In spite of all the limitations it has from the cultural standpoint and also landscape standpoint, has represented a pole of attraction in the last few decades with greater importance than the whole of Sicily. We should ask ourselves why. Why is it that European tourist flows in the past decades were addressing Malta rather than Sicily? With all respect for Malta, no doubt our potentials, our cultural potentials, and also our social potentials as whole are higher, are more impressive than those of the island of Malta. And yet we were inferior to them. We couldn't attract as many tourists. Why? Why has this happened? Simply because in Sicily, there was a fragmentation of the region, the inability of parts of the region to be easily connected with others. We had no project, no single project could unify the cultural experience of Sicily, its history, and the Sicilian lifestyle. Now we have to turn all this upside down. The park represents core, the starting point for rebirth. We must be fully aware of this and of the fact that we are really more important, not only more important than Malta, but also Greece. We can offer more than Greece in terms of pleasant experience, good way of living. So we can offer more to the international tourist flows. And we must be aware of the fact that Sicily has gone through multiple failures in the past. And following these experiences, Sicily has always had the aspiration to change. Now Sicily has a new opportunity, that is becoming a land, an area of Europe where certain inclinations are followed. I think that contrary to the past, in focusing on industrial development, instead of thinking that development is only measured in terms of technological modernity, we should focus on being a large area where a tired and disappointed world can find its raison d'être and authentic well-being again. Speaking of authentic well-being, something which is not related to the foolish rush and race towards technology, but a more authentic life, a life with more authentic values found in nature, in tastes, in flavors, and everything that has to do with rediscovering mankind in the pure sense of its essence, and also in the search for livelihood, which is self-nourished. We need Sicily to become the Florida of Europe, to become like Florida in Europe. Florida in the United States is the area where the Americans take a rest. And this implies that life is a challenge, poses us a new challenge for the future. I believe that Sicily has become an area which is visited by all those who want to live in a more authentic way. You know, this is something which is not readily available at the moment, and we have to be able to offer this in Sicily. We don't need industrial sites in Sicily. We don't need production sites generating pollution, but we have to re-establish the essential conditions for an authentic, a genuine relationship between mankind and nature. It is from this Sicily that can be generated by the Park of the Mediterranean lifestyle, which is centered on lifestyle, tastes, and also wine and food opportunities offered here.
Now I know that I indulged in scattered considerations which would need a wider consideration and in-depth exploration. I only wanted to give a message that can be recapped as follows. A park that we're building together already holds in itself lots of potentials concerning economic development, agriculture, farming, working conditions, and culture. But it also needs its own strategy, its own cultural strategy, which needs to be well defined. And it's this well-defined cultural strategy that we need to work on. It's this well-defined cultural strategy that represents the goal, the aim of this meeting, which can be the grounds for a permanent training and cultural guide, and also concerning economic aspects that we hosted by the park. So that's my suggestion, to have a center for the park, a permanent group for training and development, the cultural and historical awareness of all initiatives implemented. The work should not see itself be fragmented, be carried out in isolation. So all initiatives should then be conveyed to the whole of Sicilian identity as connection, as link to the main objective, which is the training and implementation of an island which is accessible in order to regain identity and freedom for our life through culture and also through an authentic relationship with nature. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Meno. Thank you, Carlo, for your amazing, generous intervention, strategic and also technically detailed. Now, we, of course, have a committee in mind, but as you said, these strategic core that you mentioned, and this was what we said at the beginning of our session, we need an idea that constitutes the grounds of our initiative. Why are we combining the qualities and the resources we have? Because this is the secret to it. The secret is to bring together skills or fields, all different charismas. Those who are at the head of society are a connection point between extraordinary people. So the steering committee is made of those who take upon themselves task to lead all the different skills that are available. Let me say something abrupt. The literary element is only one of the resources. We need the sociological, psychological, industrial elements. We need all knowledge. The good engineer or the scientist, physician, not only do they represent themselves as individuals, but also represent general skills, as well as Tommasi di Lampedusa and Sciascia, the great writers. A good officer, a civil servant, is already a leader. I've worked in public administration myself for a long time, and I've met amazing people. So the park is a park in itself, and together with other thing. It's also a general challenge that Sicily presents itself with. This is the aim of this work. And I take this occasion and to say hello to so many friends that have joined us, such as Roberto Caffa, my guardian angel in the Ragusa area, Mr. Laprima, who's in charge of the university task. And we will extend on to area the Iblei Mountains. And let me say that years ago, I worked on many projects. I remember one of that count on a 3 billion budget. So we'll do many things, but please listen to the contributions today, because these experts are here with us, and it shouldn't be mistaken. It shouldn't be the case that people should mistake that we're doing something very small. So please try to understand this aspect. Do not mistake such an initiative for a small thing. Each one of you can be involved in so many projects, but this is very important for us. We are experiencing 7 crises. The Mediterranean, or the so-called expanded Mediterranean crisis. So you can, of course, count numberless countries, Libya, which is a very bad situation close to us, the Iraq as well. The other crisis, the financial crisis of 2007, the crisis of Europe. A Europe that is becoming more and more asymmetrical. I'll be ready to bring together Europe for the United European States entity. And we shouldn't be arguing between ourselves. So these cries are generated by what scientists tell us about viruses. Scientists, of course, explain the reasons through deforestation and then the consequent spillover. We can read books written out of the utmost rigor. And the more you study, the less you know, to quote Socrates. Then health crisis and health care system crisis, which has been devastating. A military crisis, And we already experienced the Balkan tragedy, where among the best leaders, one among the best leaders committed suicide because of the situation. Then the environmental crisis we all know about. And one of our books references deals with this aspect, because, you know, we suggest bibliography. So what should we expect furthermore? Sicily, just thanks to its territory and population, is great. It's larger than 10 Europe countries. Because with all due respect, it's much greater, larger than the Italian regions. I got lost, sorry.
È arrivato.
So, a new guest has arrived.
Un attimo solo.
Just a moment. Will you introduce our next guest, Luca Bianchi?
Sì, sì, sì. Un attimo solo perché...
Just a moment. Here I am. Oh, Luca is here. Good morning, Luca. Thank you. So, Luca Bianchi is here with us, the great director of the Association for the Development of Industry in the South. And we were talking about managers. So here we have a great technician and great experience with a great experience in administration. And he's really an outstanding member of our steering class, I would say. He follows the legacy of great people, such as Don Luigi Sturzo. And for those of you who do not know about history, please get involved with it. This is a good contagion that should be spread. Lately, together with other important people who are friends, Luca has worked on a book on the later challenges, which I will not reveal before you see something on there. So Luca, please help us developing this conversation. Good development policies, and some of them, please keep in mind that have failed, because I have a long experience in micro policies. So we also need, I'm convinced that we also need macro policies. So what should we do with the public policies, such as the plan for resilience?
Grazie.
Vai tranquillo, ma
So
diciamo,
please help us. I ask you to get in tune with this lifestyle, because I am convinced that it's a general principle for Italy, for the whole of a country. Yes, like those who founded the Limes Association, such as Quale Saracen. Thank you so much. I hope the next time I'll be there with you, because it'll be the lucky occasion for me to come back to Sicily. I really wanted to be here. It's important for me that proposals should come from local territory, proposals for social, political, and economic development, really reflecting the trends and the nature of those territories. Like in your case, the Mediterranean lifestyle, a distinctive trait of our geography. And I think that Sicily should have in the past played a much relevant role, much prominent role than that it played. I will not bore you with data and figures, but I think it would be important, and I'm saying this for the young students there, it would be important to study a few reports published by SPIMS. So please visit our website, because it focuses on how, on the situation, on the condition of the Italian economy. And you'll find a few food for thought to better focus on what we can define as the new Southern issue. I heard our Prime Minister yesterday, who was yesterday in Naples, and said that the figures we have from our economy confirm that such a thing as a Southern issue still exists in terms of employment and youth participate in the life of the country. And these all confirm the Southern issue, which consists of the big divide between the north and the south of Italy. Today, I would like to give a content to the concept of what is called Southern issue. I would like to explain what it is meant really, because sometimes it feels as if it was just something distant, far away from our present life, something set in stone. So the effort that I've made over the past years is really close to the theme you're discussing today, is to try and read territorial divides, not only on the basis of classical indicators, traditional indicators, but using what I call the citizenship divide. What I mean is that economic policy should be grounded on the levels of citizenship. What do I mean by these terms? All the public services which by constitution should be guaranteed, but on the contrary, are not so in reality. And there's an element around which, revolving around which we can discuss the Southern issue. If we start from the concrete example that in a few regions from the south of Italy, and in particular in a few areas of Sicily, Campania, Calabria. Those essential services are denied, are not available. Of course, I refer to my booklet published by the Rubettino Publishing House, and where I tackled the great divide. And in this book, I say that it's a quality of life that's decreased in the South due to the smaller offer, the poor offer of those that are considered essential services. After the public finances shock in 2012 and 13, the availability of essential services such as full-time elementary school or kindergartens because it is unfair that half the children in Italy should be denied the option of a full-time school time. So we realized that we were living in a different country, although living in the same one. And we saw the conditions of healthcare service in Italy. Talking about the pandemic, the restrictions due to the pandemic, it was easier to be considered a restricted area because of the availability of hospital services. So what we have in mind is that the model for the state intervention for southern region based on the old distinction between ordinary policies and extraordinary political measures were something we considered set in stone. And it's true that resources and funding that were targeted the South, held by regional governments, were cut when the need would arise in other areas. So there was a tacit agreement in a way between national, those who ruled the nation, and local administrators concerning policies that could be handled with freedom. Freedom, including the one by which politicians would consider their future voters. And especially after the mid-90s, such a thing as a northern issue arose. And by this, I mean that the idea, the perspective that Northern Italy would always lead the Italian economy. This caused an even greater divide in our country. That's why we still discuss the Southern issue. a social and political issue before being an economic debate. So it has to do with public thing. And I think that it is useful to redesign public intervention in the south of Italy. The offer of public services should be strengthened, having in mind what are the real priorities: education first, conditions, infrastructures. And when I mention infrastructures, of course, I do refer to the traditional view of physical infrastructures being set up in places where, of course, there are problems with railways or highways connections. I'm also referring to the wide broadband connection and the markets, the possibilities connected to digital infrastructures. And given the time it takes for physical infrastructures to be implemented, it becomes almost an essential right for those areas which have lesser physical infrastructures to invest in digital infrastructure or virtual infrastructures, especially where I have a few options connected to transportation. These areas we should be provided with greater resources for the other, let's call them the virtual infrastructures required by present life. These needs a change in cultural paradigms. Just to name an example, instead of realizing the emptiest roundabout at the entrance of a small town, those funds should be invested in improving schools, buildings, public buildings and public services. We should be able to invest in a new way of thinking. And of course, we have an amazing opportunity. Is the plan, the national plan for resilience. We have more than 200 billions for Italy, and a great part of it should be devoted to the southern regions. But we should be aware of the fact that policies should be fine-tuned according to the territories. Policies need to be adapted to the territories if we want them to impact positively on people's lives. SVIME's association has just published a book with proposals for interventions that should be carried out immediately, because the plan, the national plan for resilience, encompasses the use of resources on competitiveness. And by this, I mean that investments on aspects that really impact the quality of citizens' life bring administration, in particular local administrations, to be competitors among them. They will have to select projects submitted by the bodies in charge. This mechanism risks, endangers the 40% proportion that is expected in the plan, in the national plan, because small towns need to be able to participate in the tender, in the call for proposals, and it'd be an incentive for little towns to do well. We can't ignore that towns in southern Italy have lost almost 40% of their personnel. Many town councils are in economic crisis because of the policies that were implemented in the past. So there's a great difficulty the side of mayors to be active in planning and implementation. If we do not intervene on this, if we do not correct such a trajectory, and if we do not shift from a competitor's dimension to collaboration, we can't go ahead. We need to work together to devise and then plan the necessary projects. If a small town is not capable or strong enough to submit projects because they do not see possibility in concrete, and the state needs to help them. The fact that we were born in a place rather than in another cannot condemn us cannot doom us to the same condition forever. First, we need to identify the needs, and then you can find the firm, the company, or the right partner to carry it out, even to submit the project for your needs. All the agencies in the territory at different levels, national, regional, local, need to work together on these. Identifying needs, such as, for example, kindergartens, because it is not enough to decide that 40% of the National Plan for Resiliency will be devoted to Southern region. The plan, of course, itself is a step ahead, but we need to identify all the types of service that are needed by citizens and need to be working on them. So public discussion needs to be implemented on this. The last thing I would like to point out is related to daily news. After the pandemic crisis and since the beginning of the war in Ukraine, we can realize that we turned our back against the Mediterranean. We've been short-sighted as politicians, and I'm talking about Europe and Italy. we've been short-sighted because we missed the sight of the possibilities related to talking about European possibilities connected to the Mediterranean dimension that we have neglected, both in terms of overall strategy and of investments. We need to turn this perspective upside down because talking about the energy supplies and other strategic facilities, especially the development of renewable energy sources. All these and all the investments that can be done on renewable energy sources cannot but come from the Mediterranean basin. The world trade will be carried out mainly in the Mediterranean, and we're missing once again the opportunity to develop our harbors. It's precisely in that dimension that we've missed the chance to see development. We were so busy in the southern-northern divide and discussion that we forgot to follow where the future goes from an environmental point of view, from an economic point of view. Sicily itself is worth reassessing a cultural thought that we experience today. It can be the guide for a more connected, a more united Europe. And I will conclude here by stating that what you discussed today really poses an interesting challenge of great interest also for the rest of the country. Thank you, Director. And don't forget that we called you a leader, and this is absolutely true, even if you don't want to admit it. And you mentioned a few interesting points. And for those who want to really appreciate your contribution, you gave us great food for thought, because we need to overcome beyond the very local development policies. And Luca, in a way, as I said at the beginning, absolutely assessed and brought to a new light the thought of Don Luigi Sturzo. Thank you, Luca. Would you like to say something on Dottore Portalumi? We'll leave the floor to the chief of the investment area of Invitalia. Mr. Are you with us? Yes, can you?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Buongiorno, grazie a tutti, grazie per l'invito.
Good morning, thanks for having me here. Yes, you are a big team. Don't forget about this. We will meet soon and we will submit all this effort that we have carried out in the past few years, 13,000 hours of work. Over to you now. Yes, good morning. Mr. Arcuri had another commitment and could not join. I'd like to go back to the effective summary made by Mr. Bianchi, saying that, you know, the south of Italy is a loser in the expenditure war. The NRRP is a reserve which has to be allocated and expended, and it has to be spent because, you know, the battle for the allocation of resources was won, but the expenditure battle is the most difficult to fight and win. Institutional development contracts aim at providing an answer to this, that is accelerating the spending. This is a tool provided by law, not to plan resources, but to select interventions for which decision makers and the government have already allocated resources in order to identify the most effective implementation solutions. The previous speakers have already mentioned that the quality of service is mandatory for the quality of infrastructure, for example. I don't want to remind you of this in order to point to responsibilities, etc. But all procedures, again, for the failure to implement certain infrastructure is in the south, you know, for example, illegal dump sites or for neglect. Very little has been accomplished. Too ambitious programming had been put in place with very limited ability to implement. That should be the starting point, I think. And one should wonder, what do we need for those funded interventions to be implemented through sites, for example, building sites and similar sites? There are regulatory solutions, there are territorial, local and national entities that can help in terms of investments. But unfortunately, in many cases, there is not willingness to implement all this. I'm from the south and I know the mechanisms. There is a sort of selfishness in getting hold of the resources, but people tend to forget about the goal, which is spending these resources. And very often there is a mismatch. Instead, we have to avoid this. The institutional development contract is a tool for this purpose, because the moment you select interventions, well, that's the most complex part. I always tell my colleagues, we have to be administratively cynical. It's useless to select interventions that are incompatible with the spending cycles, because they are difficult to plan, they often are too ambitious and impossible to achieve. They're not feasible. Let's give priority to what can be implemented immediately. For example, the water treatment plants. We need no commissioner for this. The tools are available. Were we to give priority to infrastructures in a certain area, improving the quality of life of citizens and attracting investors and tourists, well, you must know that if there are good infrastructures, then the place becomes a more attractive place for those wanting to spend holidays there, or for businesses wanting to start operations there. Now, in order to bridge the gap, we have to set priorities in a real world and not in an ideal one. political decision makers at national and local level must identify those actions and operations where that can be funded as a priority. I believe that there should be no mismatch between the decision makers and those spending, the spenders, because the spending will be decided upon nationally in order to protect the implementation of certain works. Together with the Cassa Depositi and Prestiti, we're working in order to put in place all interventions envisaged in the National Resilience and Recovery Plan. Let me give you a practical example. Together with the Association of Municipalities, we understood that because of the bottlenecks, the bottlenecks of the National Resilience and Recovery Plan, all sites should open by December 2023. This means that, calls for tender must be launched, verifications must be carried out. There's a chain for this now. We have to think of the process to December 2023. In the next few weeks, a call for tender will be published, and many of the local governments involved in urban regeneration have responded to this call for tender. I must complain, though, because the city of Milan, the city of Florence, Bologna, where they've all adhered. The southernmost city is Naples. I think the same type of interventions have to be carried out in Milan, but also in the south of Italy. This is a national tool that was made available, and yet most cities in the center and north have adhered while the others have not. They have responded, the others have not. Why? Why is it that the local government in the south does not respond? There's always an exception for them. There's always a reason to delay this process. Unfortunately, we have no possibility to update the programming cycles. Resources are available and they have to be spent within a certain period of time. What should we do? We should carry out a surveillance work. I hope that the local government in the south establishes a system of surveillance in order to grasp all opportunities. If there is an opportunity, why should it be considered as an opportunity by the city of Milan or Florence, and why is it neglected by Reggio Calabria or Messina? I'm just thinking of metropolitan cities. There must be a reason for this. I won't argue about this. It's not my job. It's not my job to solve all these critical issues, but my task, my duty is to submit this issue to the attention of the citizens and those that are responsible for these actions. These national procedures are available to all cities. Minimal will be made available through the National Resilience and Recovery Plan. The institutional development contract are some kind of micro territorial or local national resilience and recovery plan. Imagine a contract that defines who does what and when. And if you fail to do something, then you don't get the resources anymore. This tool requires interest and availability on the part of the regional authorities. So the state, the regions, and the local government must work in synergy. I do hope that today's initiative will start a mechanism to empower the region as far as all this is concerned, so that the resources are made available at national level. The interventions encompassed in those contracts are for example, related to the infrastructure that is necessary to improve the quality of life of the citizens, attracting not just investments, but also visitors. Now, to get closer to the topic of today, we work together with the Ministry of Culture and Cultural Heritage, and we are the tool through which all their investments are made. You know that the Sicilian region is independent from the cultural point of view, but again, if any initiatives are undertaken in relation to the cultural heritage in the area of Caltanissetta or in Sicily in general, well, the region has to participate in these efforts because of its prerogatives. And I think that the regional authorities will have to participate in the implementation process where there is an entity, which is Italy, for the institutional contracts, which have also to be shared by the authorities. I thank you very much for your attention, and I hope I've made a contribution to the institutional contracts. It was an exceptional, an amazing talk. You were very strict, but also honest. You have also touched upon the autonomy of Sicily, the cultural heritage, the national mechanisms, and you have stressed the strategic role of the institutional contracts. They really a smart intuition.
Al di là delle congiunture effimere e della cronaca. E quindi
I believe
chiediamo il vostro aiuto.
we need your help. We will try and be very strict in all our actions. And thank you very much. I think we have to proceed in this way because it's something really amazing. Thank you very much. We're here, we're ready to help. Once you have kicked off the process, then we're actually here to help.
Grazie.
Thank you very much, Mr. Portaluri. Then I would like to ask Mr. Nuccio Di Paola to come up on stage.
Grazie, buongiorno a tutti e grazie per l'invito. Io mi scuso.
Thank you very much for your kind invitation. I apologize for coming late, but I was at another important meeting with the mayor of Caltanissetta this morning. It's another project that could help relaunch our area. It's the hospital project. It's called the Scattered Hospital Project. Mayor Gambino was very good at submitting proposals. Whatever proposal we make in order to relaunch this area so that it is better, in a better position to deal with the future and the future requirements, well, whatever proposal, it has to be shared with all other stakeholders. This is what you have done with the Park of Mediterranean Lifestyle. You've involved all stakeholders. As you heard this morning, there is a bill which will be passed next week by the Sicilian Regional Assembly on the park of Mediterranean lifestyle. So trying to involve all stakeholders and develop synergies, we can promote certain ideas in a better way. This morning we had Mr. Messina here with us. We hope that we can add an amendment in April so that this law can be funded. A lot is being done at the moment. I've seen students from the Technical Institute Mario Rappisardi. I was a teacher there for some years, and I must say that everything which is being built at the moment through the Park of Mediterranean Lifestyle and everything which is done for Caltanissetta and the area around it is something that will be available to you once you get close to the end of high school, because many students wonder what am I going to do at the end of the high school. What is being done at the moment will provide you an answer. You will not have to leave Caltanissetta thanks to this project. Your parents are investing in order to educate you, and once you complete high school, you'll be able to provide your contribution here. I think we should thank Beppe and also Mr. Nicoletti for allowing you to work here in Caltanissetta, thanks to the funding that will be made available for the establishment of the Park of Mediterranean Lifestyle. Thank you very much. I wish you every success, and I'm sorry I will have to leave because I have a meeting in another place.
Allora, grazie Nuccio, grazie per la tua...
Thank you, Nuccio. Thank you for your presence, first of all, because it is very important for us. You've been with us from the very first day, and for all the help we can have from regional government. Hello, Giuseppe. So we have a friend coming back here. He was with us last November in those we called 5 days of Caltanissetta. And he's come to say hello today as well. He couldn't come to Sicily this time. Last time he was here. He's the mayor of the small town of Campo di Pietra, which is carrying on with the Cheese Molise experience. So we'll hand it over to you. Please, Giuseppe, take the floor. Mr. Portaluri was surely a very important member of the Molise cheese, especially for the rural trails. Your project is very interesting to network all these small towns, not only for tourists, but also for other things, is the best thing we could do. And we should thank also, and let me say once again on my part, Invitalia for all the things it does towards all those who submit projects aiming to development and innovation in our areas, because I think it is what was missing.
In questa direzione, Francesco. Chiaramente
So,
è una sfida.
Francesco, it is clearly a challenge. It is an important challenge, even more so today, because we're facing all these problems after 2 years with the pandemic crisis, and now the news of the situation in Ukraine from a humanitarian point of view, but also economic point of view. Really requires all the best efforts. We need to go ahead with the projects, with our projects, especially because they are meant for our regions, which are disadvantaged from a few points of view. I also think that tax benefits should be devised for our areas if we want to have results in short term. You know that with the Southern Recovery Plan, we're going ahead, and let's say that we can probably look at the future with a positive feeling, because it only depends on us and on the government, hoping that it will go on supporting our initiatives. Let me wish you all the best. Let me say hi to Giuseppe De Santis, who's a very active and important member in this activity. Thank you so much. You're also our feedback on the cheese experience. Team work is always essential. We're also aiming to focus on the traditional routes and the park. Let me say that the management model was really emphasized by Invitalia. The choice of this model, the pattern that was used, applied in Molise, is really smart and harbors shelters from the risks that we've experienced over time, the incapability for expenditure, those projects that are then interrupted. So it's important. I agree, because even with the National Plan for Recovery and Resilience, the cheese gives a perspective on the whole area. So multiple projects can be supported. Thank you. And I'm sure that we'll have the chance to meet soon. Now we'll have Minister Di Maio with us in connection. It's a pleasure to be present at the awaiting Terra, Madre initiative. And let me thank all the institutional representatives and the local realities on behalf of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, I would like to involve especially young generations on issues that are vital, such as environmental protection and Mediterranean, the spreading of Mediterranean culture all over the world. We can experience these international dynamics, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is busy, especially has been busy during the last weeks in providing our partners with a response to the unjustifiable invasion and attack by Russia onto the Ukrainian territory. This is the greatest humanitarian crisis since the Second World War, which is also affecting the Italian economic markets with its energy crisis that is combining with the losses, especially with regard to energy crisis. We have set up a task force for Italian companies and business on the most urgent needs of our firms. We working so as to speed up the identification of new routes for commerce and exchange. I traveled in the last weeks, I traveled to many countries, especially in Africa, to establish new deals with these countries. Of course, our aim is to implement the new deal and to respect the deadlines of the European Union policy. We aim at environmental sustainability in the framework of the National Plan for Recovery and Resilience. Europe has allocated 100 billion euro funds, and the 40% of these investments and plan resources are aimed at southern companies. We plan funds allocated so as to guarantee the digitalization process and ensuring, therefore, a strong presence in the international market. By the 31st December 2021, the submission of plans was expected, and this is what our ministry has been busy with, so as to ensure the development and centrality of the Italian sector. These topics are also the grounds for the World Fair to be hosted in Italy in 2030. As the success of the Italian pavilion at the Dubai 2020 Expo witnesses, these are new opportunities for our national growth. Such events, such as those you are representing here, discussing the project of the Park of the Mediterranean Lifestyles, are vital for our ministry. The World Heritage, the UNESCO acknowledges sees so many sites, the highest number of sites in Italy, 158. And this emphasizes how Italy is an outstanding partner for UNESCO. Today's initiative represents the starting point of an innovative cultural challenge, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will always be active in doing its part. So let me thank you and wishing you good work. Thank you, Minister Di Maio. Today is, of course, busy with international events. Let's stop here, and we will be back at 3:30 after lunch. Thank you for being with us.
Ho capito. La puoi scrivere anche dopo. Io ho detto che poi gliela scrivo.
Properly.
All'interno di questa strumentazione sono presenti straordinari strumenti informativi e promozionali, quali ad esempio infomercati esteri, le reti succedane degli altri ministeri che promuovono interventi di
There's a phone call ongoing, so the interpreter can't hear the speaker. So all the international networks, for example, those related to the International